Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And by Wyndham Garden Lafayette.
From the French press in downtown Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christiaan Mader, publisher and editor of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. I'm Christiaan Mader. The term Silicon Bayou has been around for some time. It's the promise of a new economy for Louisiana, sometimes thought of in New Orleans and also out here in Acadiana. And this area has always been the frontier when it comes to business, and that attitude was put on the map by oil speculators that came to be known over the years as wildcatters. And that's really another way of saying entrepreneur. These are the risk takers, the folks hunting for the next big idea and hoping to strike gold. My guests today both work in the world of startups, the new business frontier with a different kind of wildcat. Kyle Boudreaux, more often called Skip, got into the startup world early. By 25, he was CEO of Fuzzy Buns, a cloth diaper company that made it to Shark Tank. He went on to work in the world of investment capital, and he recently launched the first venture capital firm in the area called Acadian Ventures. Skip, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thanks, Christiaan.
Bill Dalton has worked in web since the dot-com boom. And he launched Firefly Digital in the late 1990s with his partner Mike Spears. The company was one of the first agencies in the area to build and design websites for business, and people still called it the World Wide Web back then. Firefly Digital incubated the startup Smart Choice Technologies to a successful exit in November. Now the company is rebranded as Firefly Marketing, and Bill's team provides full-service digital marketing for clients near and far. Bill, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Excellent, Christiaan. It's great to be here.
Bill, I want to circle back. So you've been in this business for a while. So you, like I said, you kind of like were there when that dot-com bubble burst and things have really changed, I would imagine, in your world. Like you guys work on CMS, meaning content management systems, the ability for people to put blogs and content on the web. How do you guys stay viable when you have things like Squarespace and WordPress coming into the market? What's happening there?
One thing's for sure in the web and technology industry, if you're not looking for the next opportunity, in other words, we actually know that 5 years from now, we'll be making majority of our money from something we probably haven't even invented yet. We look at product opportunities like Smart Choice, as well as developing new service lines that are yet to even be conceived of. That's important that you look ahead, because if you really aren't growing what you're doing, you're definitely going to fall behind.
How do you look ahead on something that you're fundamentally just uncertain about, right? Like when you're saying in 10 years, we're going to be in an entirely different business, let's say, like our product is going to be a different thing. That seems like a really fragile position to be in. Like
any entrepreneurial spirit, you learn to listen. You learn to listen for the problems. When you hear somebody complaining about something, I wish I had this. Is there a way I could just get this going? Right now, our big focus at Firefly Marketing is to go ahead and take all these streams of data that people are getting and to turn them into a much more live and integrative report card. So that any owner of a business, along with a little bit of consulting come along, can go ahead and make sure they get a great picture of what they have, as opposed to trying to have managed 5 or 6 different social channels.
What does that report card look like? Are you describing sort of like a dashboard? I run a small business. I'm kind of curious, what does this thing actually do? How does it streamline my process?
A lot of it starts with the goals. You want to make sure that you've got a good goal set established for yourself, so that way you are able to go ahead and ascertain over time whether or not the goals are being achieved and what maybe A/B testing needs to be applied. The report card could be definitely looked at as a dashboard, but to me it's very live and interactive because you can change a lot of factors at one time to go ahead and make sure that you're really getting a good picture. For the uninitiated, it can be a little complex looking, but over time we find most of our clients after about the 3rd or 4th meeting really begin to get in there and play with it themselves to find where they think we could go ahead and help them out.
Have things really changed in terms of what clients expect from sort of web design companies when you're coming in and saying, I would imagine, say in the late 90s, people are basically coming in and saying get my brand on the internet, right? And now you have sort of an expectation that I may not have to go to somebody and say, can you fix this thing on my front page? Can you get this blog post up? What's really changed in terms of what people expect from you?
The biggest thing I've seen changing is it's so crazy. easily 5 years ago, everybody thought about their website as what's on their computer. Absolutely now mobile is positively the first gateway step. If you don't have a great mobile website site on your phone, both on Android and iPhone, you are way behind. This is where your customers are going to see you first. That's been something that is a critical transformation that we want to make sure all of our clients are getting on first. Then you need to go ahead and consider where are you really getting your message out and how are you filtering it to make sure you're able to go ahead and stay in with the trends that your customers are interested in.
Yeah, okay. Skip, you launched Acadian Capital Ventures to fill in a capital gap. That's my understanding. And there's sort of like a small startup ecosystem here. But what I take is that your idea is that there's a whole lot of buried treasure, say, between the coasts. So like that VCs, let's say venture capitalists and VC firms, tend to go after stuff in New York, or they go after stuff in, kind of around Silicon Valley. Why are you so confident that, there's something in their hills, right? Like something that you can go grab, say, in Milwaukee.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's not so much that they go out to deploy there. It's the fact that that's where they exist currently. And so you'll see in the national market, it's almost like bifurcated, right? So you have the East Coast and you have the West Coast. In those areas, the supply-demand of investment capital is just, it's flopped from what it is here, right? So for example, we're at a VC event talking to one of the attorneys from one of the big funds over there, Peter Thiel's fund, and he looked at me in the eyes, he said, "Skip, you don't understand. There's unlimited capital." And so I said, "What did you mean?" He said, "Well, you got the Saudi funds, the Kuwaiti funds, the sovereign wealth funds. SoftBank is a $100 billion fund." And so over there, like, it's so backwards. They'll have companies that will come the teams will bring the legal to the legal department at 10 a.m. and say, "We need this turned around by 1 because that's the wire deadline. And if we don't do the deal, someone else will do the deal." So they're just fighting for these companies. And what's happening is you get very founder-friendly terms that are driving up the valuations. And sometimes it's just not profitable. It doesn't make sense. Take that to the other side of the country, or in the middle of the country, it's flipped. It's backwards. So you have all these companies and good ideas and entrepreneurs that are that just have something special, but they don't have access to capital, right? So unless you have a rich uncle or really well connected, they just kind of like die on the vine. And so what we did, and we looked out to do, is provide those areas with capital, and we figure that we can help communities like Lafayette or like Milwaukee.
I don't know why I picked on Milwaukee. It's just the first most Midwestern place I could think of.
Right, but we can help those communities have good startup companies, and at the same time, we can take advantage of the inefficiencies in the market, get those companies at good valuations, and make money off of that arbitrage ourselves.
So how are you pairing capital, let's say, like where is the money coming from, the investment money coming from, and then finding, these companies that I take it are not necessarily in your backyard, right? Like, so how are you actually making those connections? Who are your funders, and who are the people you're giving that money to?
Right. So the way venture capital works is a venture capital fund has investors. They're called limited partners, and they give money to the fund, and then the fund deploys that capital and tries to generate a return for them. Right, and so they're kind of two bases of entities, right? And so I always tell the story. I think I must have told you the whaling story, like the history of venture capital.
Well, let's go over the whaling story a little bit. Yeah, okay. I think that's a good way.
So, all right. So venture capital in the United States, it's beginning. I don't know if you know this, Bill. You probably have heard this. In whaling, right? So back in like the 18th century, people lit their homes with the most efficient energy that they had, and that was whale oil, right? And so the way they get it is through whaling. So whaling was extremely popular, extremely valuable, but super risky, right? And so, for example, there's a town where they kept records, New Bedford, Massachusetts, and in the 18th century, I think it was like 787 voyages that went out. 272 were sunk, caught on fire, mutiny, kind of Moby Dick, right? They're done. And so what happened is these wealthy families would look at this and they say, well, we want we want to invest in this whaling expedition type of thing because we want the returns that are coming from whale oil, they were like 60% year over year for like a long period of time. But they didn't want to take the risk of outfitting a boat and picking the captain and charting where the whales are and doing all that by themselves, because you deploy all this capital into one shot, it goes out, and then it gets sunk and you lose all your money. So that's whenever these agents came in. So these agents came in, your modern day venture capitalists, they would pull the money from a bunch of different families, and they'd say, how about this? We pull all your money, we'll go out, we know all the captains, we know we're plotting where the whale pods are, and we'll go out and we'll deploy a whole bunch of whaling expeditions, and if some sink, that's fine, but the ones that make it back, we're able to get the capital that's returned from there and then deploy it back to the families. So it's a way of spreading out risk, right? And so if you take that and bring it to Louisiana back in the 50s, in the wildcatting days that you alluded to, it's kind of the same thing, right? So, back in the wildcatting days, you drill 10 wells, 7 out of 10 are going to be dry. You don't make any money off of it, but the 3 that you hit pay for the 7 that were dry, right? And that's just kind of like the risk-reward standpoint. So we knew that instinctively here. And so in Lafayette or in Louisiana, like, we still have that culture of, look, we're going to go out, we're going to try to put a hole in the ground, try to get oil. It's super risky, but if it hits, we're going to strike gold. And so you don't just drill one well, you drill 10 or 20. That was a long way of venture capital.
I think it was it was as concise as you needed it to be. Bill, I'm curious, something that you're kind of alluding to, right, is this idea that I would imagine concepts or companies or startups, however people really want to call it, things like Smart Choice Technologies, right, that there are companies like that, right, that may have not had access to a person like Skip or a fund like Skip. I mean, was that the experience in terms of like getting that started? I mean, is this something that would have changed where the company went? I mean, I guess I'm asking, does your experience sort of jibe with that feeling of, we don't really have those kind of assets?
Smart Choice was completely homegrown, home done, and it was tough. Would it have been a lot easier if we could have gone ahead and actually hooked up with Skip and probably found that capital? We probably would have, but at the same time, it was we got very lucky. And that's the kind of luck that a lot of people don't have. That we were blessed with great product, great people, and a great community to be in. We were able to find great staff and resources in terms of human capital that allowed us to go ahead and grow the Smart Choice product to 4.5 million students, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools that went ahead and allowed us to grow it. It would have been a lot easier to have Skip in our backyard.
So to that point, we actually saw Smart Choice. I don't know if you want to keep this or not, but we actually saw Smart Choice back in like 2016, 2017, around then. But we were very nascent in our structure and our professionalism and institutionalizing of capital. Right?
When you say we, do you mean, obviously it wasn't Acadian Capital Ventures,
no,
it was around.
Acadian Angels.
Okay.
So Acadian Angels is our local angel network that kind of we spun out of.
So in angels, just to be clear, are investors that invest at kind of a lower level than, say, venture capital.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
But we looked at Smart Choice, but we didn't have at that time the ability to run the deal ourselves and really package it in a way that's smart for the company. You have a lot of people who are doing like these country club deals who will fund these companies, but they do it with just such overbearing terms, or just they don't know the next steps, and so you end up doing more harm to the company than good. We weren't at that place at the time when we saw you guys.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, like, a lot of it is not necessarily about a lack of money, let's say, like money to deploy, to put into a company like that, but sort of like the know-how of setting up these kinds of deals to sort of make a conduit to the business itself in a way that actually helps it succeed.
One of the great adventures in this sale was how our little homegrown entrepreneurial company then had to mesh with the West Coast accounting. The West Coast, apparently the way we did sales, marketing, and accounting was completely on another planet. From what at every turn, it was like, wait, you did this how? You booked revenue how? And it was so interesting because we were just so used to do our homegrown ways of doing it, and we did a great job, I think. But it was definitely, I think they were even more amazed at how successful we had become with the way we were running it on our style, then they were like, wow, the way you did it, you still did all this. It's incredible. So it was quite the adventures, the meshing of the small entrepreneurial side, integrating with apparently standards of accounting are a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, something that I'm really curious about, because you mentioned that you felt like when you whether it was Firefly Digital or Smart Choice, that you guys have had access, you called it human capital, which is another way of just saying talent, right? And I get mixed signals from people on this in terms of I interview people and people say no, Lafayette's got a lot of great talent for this stuff. Or they'll say Acadiana, well, they have some talent, but a lot of it, they go to other places. They go to Austin, they go to Atlanta. I mean, what's been your experience in terms of the talent pool and your ability to leverage people?
Acadiana is just a wealth of great talent. Our university here consistently kicks out, doesn't kick out, our university here constantly graduates talent that is ready and eager to come to work, okay? And yeah, some of them are going to head to Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Houston, Chicago, Atlanta, but a lot of them like being here, and a lot of them love Acadiana. And so probably the most unique thing is that some of our senior staff who've been with the company now for 20 years or 15 years, okay, we're now integrating with people who are coming straight out of college, okay? And so there is a little bit of a wildcat spirit in them that we have to kind of work with and mold, but it's so exciting and it's so neat because people who graduate, as I call it, from Firefly and go on, it's neat. Some come back and say, wow, I was out there in another company, I can't believe you guys really do it well. And others just love giving us updates about where they are in their careers. And it's one of the best and most rewarding parts about being a business owner at Acadiana is working with the young talent.
So do you find that if folks are coming through your business and they're kind of cutting their teeth and they're graduating and they're moving on? I mean, is that kind of is there a place for them to land often in Acadiana? When they get to the point you know what, I'm ready to do, it's kind of the idea, right, with I know this is not quite applicable, but you have all the little Google companies that came out of Google, people that kind of came up and then they went and they did something else.
Yeah, the Dellionaires.
What happens to people
in Austin?
Yeah, I mean, what I guess my question is are those folks
it's all
that you're
across
training?
the board. It's all across the
sure.
board. Yeah, many of them will stay here in Acadiana, but certainly we have a couple who actually one still works for us and lives in Austin. Okay,
you can work anywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can work anywhere, and if you provide a good and encouraging environment that allows you to grow, that's when people really want to stay with you and say, "Yeah, I'm looking for that new opportunity of a lifestyle in Austin." But I want to say it. So we're thrilled that we've got people who want to still be with us, even though they're in other markets.
Amazing. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Christiaan Mader. I'm talking with marketing CEO Bill Dalton and investing consultant Skip Boudreaux. We'll be right back. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Christiaan Mader. I'm talking with Skip Boudreaux of Acadian Ventures and Bill Dalton of Firefly Marketing. All right, Skip and Bill, I want to take a break, or at least kind of switch gears a little bit. This is a segment we call The Job I Almost Had, right? So somewhere out there in another dimension, there's a universe where you kind of made some different choices and there was that whole butterfly effect thing, and then you land in a completely different career. To give you an example, I might have grown up and been Paul McCartney, right? That would have been my ideal career choice. So I'm going to ask each of you to sort of tell me what that other job was. If everything had sort of bent in another direction, where do you think you would have landed?
Man, my whole life is defined by butterfly moments, and I don't want to make sure it doesn't go on too long.
Go for it. Yeah.
I mean, my butterfly moments are incredible and powerful because and I'll put pauses between so they can be worked well. But,
like Skip said, let it rip.
Meeting my wife could be defined as a butterfly moment because in 1985 I helped a guy stay in the honors program, where then he went on and proceeded to meet his wife, and because he was from New Orleans, moved back to New Orleans 5 years later. She's a guidance counselor at Mount Carmel High School. She then tells my future wife that you need to go to UL Lafayette. And at our wedding, she's invited and tells us, if she hadn't told me to go to UL Lafayette, we wouldn't be married. And I look and I see her husband is John, who wouldn't have been in school to meet his wife, to tell my wife to go to school where she met me and we fell in love.
Yeah.
So that's one butterfly moment.
That's
cosmic. But in terms of a professional butterfly moment, there's several. There's that moment when I'm standing at Kinko's getting some copies for my communications class, and I ask the manager, I just asked the manager, are you guys hiring? At that point, it completely changed my life because Kinko's hired me. I got introduced to the Macintosh computer system, desktop publishing. That led to me becoming the top desktop publishing consultant for ad agencies to get them integrated on Macintosh in Acadiana, which then led to me beginning to do 35 millimeter slide creation for presentations, which then led to service bureau work of servicing all the ad agencies at Acadiana, which led to me meeting Mike Spears, which led to me going into Firefly Digital with him, which led to Smart Choice, which led to Firefly Marketing, and me being right here with you guys because I asked a woman, are you hiring? Okay. And
so when you were standing at Kinko's and you were like, are you hiring? I mean, did you envision a career in your life where you were like, well, maybe I'll manage a Kinko's?
I was debating, should I go get an MBA somewhere? Do I want to go do, I had absolutely no direction in my life. And one little sentence, one little question, suddenly my entire life fell into place. And it's pretty shocking when a moment like that happens. Another one was when I had to make a business transformation. Kathy Pavi, who is a local branding expert and marketeer. She was with an ad agency at the time called BBR Creative, and she used my business for service bureau type work. And one day she said, "You know what, Bill? I don't think I'm going to send you that file to print out. I'm just going to email it." And when I heard that one sentence, "just gonna email it," I knew my business, as it currently was going to be over in 3 years, probably or less, because the internet was changing things so rapidly. At that point, I needed to look at another opportunity. Where am I going to be? Where am I going to go now? Am I going to go become a large format printer? That's one choice. I looked at that and I considered the 5-year possibility of that becoming a commodity, though. I didn't want to be in a commodity type business. I want to be in a business where I could really add value with technology. And that's when Mike was like, let's get something going, let's do something. I said, let's do it. I got the office space, I can incubate, we can bring the capital to this. You've got the branding, I've got the tech, let's do it. And that's when we started making websites in Acadiana in 1998.
Wow. So Skip, let's redefine this. Instead of like the job I almost had, what's your standing in line at Kinko's moment? Where do you think you would have been if you hadn't uttered those fatalistic words?
I don't know if Terracin would like me saying this, but I think this is probably right. So we'll see at the end whether or not she.
Let her rip, Skip.
So I was an electrical computer engineering student at UL. So I was at home at my house, my parents' house, and then my neighbor, Terracin Dupuy, owned Fuzzy Buns. And at that point, her current developer quit or got fired or something happened. And she came over to my house, or my parents' house, with wine and just saying, the developer's gone. My mom says, oh, well, Kyle could probably do that. And she came over and she said, look, I lost my developer. Can you help me with our web database development stuff? And I said, yeah, of course I can, right? Couldn't. So it was a Friday. I taught myself PHP and SQL over the weekend.
Programming languages?
Yeah. And then essentially, give me the logins. Taught myself, and then Monday I called her back and I was like, yeah, absolutely, I could do this. And at the time, I was working for a software firm in town that writes software for chiropractors, EasyBiz. And so at that point, just Terracin coming over and me just taking a job that I couldn't do led to, but then I built up the competence, led to me working at Fuzzy Buns for web database development. At that point, I went to UL, got my MBA. Fuzzy Buns goes on Shark Tank, and whenever you go on Shark Tank, even if you don't get a deal, once it airs, your phone blows up. And whenever she went to Shark Tank, they kind of ran her pretty hard. It wasn't really a good thing. So she took a step back, promoted me to CEO of Fuzzy Buns. I'm running it as we're getting calls from these investors saying, hey, I'm so-and-so from Boston Consulting Group. We saw you in, or Boston Investment Group, saw you on Shark Tank. We want to take a look at your company. And so I had no idea what I was doing. I had to Google the term due diligence, So I'm running the sell side process, against these other investors who know what they're doing. And then from there, I just got bit by the bug. So whenever it was sold to some local investors here in Lafayette, it just completely switched everything. So the software kind of engineering side of it I still enjoy it, but I knew I didn't want to be a developer. So I called the largest firm in town, investment firm in town, Aaron's Investment Partners, and I said, Mr. Aarons, you don't know me, my name's Skip, but I want a job. And so he said, all right, come in. So I met with him. He said, after we talked for a while, if you could pass the test, you got a job. And so from then, it kind of snowballed, where now I'm working at Aaron's. Andrew is seeing all these private deals himself come in. And so I said, oh, I was on the other side of those. And so he lets me sit in the meetings. I get to see how he evaluates the companies. And then we start building bandwidth to where now I'm looking for companies for him to invest in that are, outside of the public market. From there, we find New Orleans angels. They say, oh, look, if you're looking to join an angel group, call Pete Prados, Alan Hebert, Rick Fontova. They're starting one in Lafayette. Hooked up with those guys, and then it just kind of snowballed from them. So at that point, rather than being Andrew's representative, I started my research company, so I can do this research and diligence for anyone. Andrew became a client. The angels became a client. At that point, we realized we're finding the companies, we're doing diligence on the companies, we're negotiating the deals, we're structuring the deals, we're keeping up with the portfolio of the companies. You just kind of scratch your head. We're doing everything a venture capital firm's doing except writing the check. And then at that point, we said, all right, well, let's start a VC fund.
And it all starts with a lady and a glass of Chardonnay.
Yeah, she's coming. She was a red wine drinker.
So it kind of feels like for both of you guys, there's like this element of like confidence preceding like this competence, right? Like the idea that like you just kind of saw an opportunity and you went for it.
Absolutely.
Right. And people like I could speak for this, in my own experience, right? Like the idea that at some point you just got to make a decision and just do it. It kind of doesn't matter if you actually know PHP or like you really know where you're going to land if you like, I'm going to get a job at Kinko's, right?
Right.
I guess that was more of a statement than a question.
It's the finest statement
right?
ever.
Yeah, sure.
Good. Well
So I mean, I guess what I'm driving at is like, I mean, it does feel like you guys kind of have to scan the environment for opportunity and say like, well, define where I'm going to go. I'm going to plant the flag somewhere and then I'm going to go get it.
I think the entrepreneur, that's their sixth sense, is opportunity. There's not I think I probably create in my head probably 12, 13 businesses a year in my head. And then some of them actually get on paper, 4 or 5 actually get on paper and actually start getting thought out, I have, 2 or 3 businesses that I enjoy and are profitable and I got to file tax returns on, but besides Firefly Marketing. They're all great little things that are fun for me. They're very enjoyable.
What are those businesses?
I have a property business that me and my wife run together. That's we find exciting opportunities and are able to go ahead and flip a house here and there and maybe pick up. We also do property tax lien investing in that as well, which is a very fun thing. And then I have some very odd side hustles that that allow me to host some fabulous Jazz Fest parties that I probably can't even talk about in the air.
Okay. Feels like maybe there's a cloth diaper angle on that too.
Oh man, who was the?
Well, you're miming a bass with your hands, but I don't know what you mean by that.
Who was the guy? Funkadelic.
Parliament
Funkadelic, and then the guy who'd wear the diapers on stage.
Are you talking about the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
No.
Okay.
Oh shoot. I'm gonna Google it right now.
Okay, so you're talking about. You're talking about. God, why is this killing me? And I was a musician for like 10 years, and I should know this thing, and I don't. George Clinton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so he apparently wear diapers on stage and Funkadelic. Yeah. We got a cease and desist from Fuzzy Buns. I wish I wanted to say I tried to frame it or save it at the time, and I lost it during my moves. But we actually got a cease and desist from him because we had the colors were Funkadelic colors, and they were related to diapers. And they said, "Look, this guy wears diapers on stage and uses the term Funkadelic. You guys need to change the colors."
It sounds like a fabulous publicity to actually take the lawsuit on.
Yeah.
Just for the publicity you could have from it.
That wasn't
Our diapers are funky, though. I'm not sure that's a great promo.
That was a side note. But my point was to Bill earlier when you were saying I don't know what our revenue stream is going to be in 5 years. It goes back to that kind of confidence of it's not about what you're doing or what the company's built for. It's like your culture is built on innovation and knowing that you're going to see opportunities and pivot to them. You know what I mean? like you feel confident saying, whatever it is, we'll find it, because our culture is built to find these opportunities and pivot towards them.
Is this like fundamentally different than how people understood business 50 years ago? I mean, like my image of this is that, people kind of said like, hey, here's a thing I can make and I know how I can sell it. Here's the market. I'm going to do it. Right. And like, we're going to build around.
This has changed from like maybe 10 years ago. Like business plans, I don't see any business plans anymore. Throw them in the trash. Like people are using like lean startup methodology, unless you're getting like an SBA loan, they still require them. But like lean startup methodology of have an idea, what's your value proposition, go try to find a market, and you can sell things before they exist now.
Yeah. I still think vision and goals and building a great leadership team probably some of the most important things that you can have in an organization. Without an ability to get your group acting as one muscle, okay, to pull together towards those same goals, at that point, yeah, you've when you can achieve that, you've got a company that can go places.
More often than not, ventures succeed because they offer something no one else has or fill a gap that other companies have overlooked, and that's the way of entrepreneurship. Nothing ventured is nothing gained, as they say, right? So Bill and Skip, you guys are really putting that saying to work with what you guys are doing. Best of luck to you both, and thanks for joining me today on Out to Lunch Acadiana.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks.
My guests on Out to Lunch Acadiana today have been Skip Boudreaux of Acadiana Capital Ventures and Bill Dalton of Firefly Marketing. If you want to know what we look like, you can find photos from this show on itsacadiana.com and on our Out to Lunch Acadiana social media. These photos were taken by Gwen O'Quinn. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. The producer of Out to Lunch Acadiana is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Morrell. Our associate producer is Molly Richard. Our researchers are Ann Christiaan and Maggie Mendel. Today's show is engineered by Kieran McIntosh. I'm Christiaan Mader, editor of The Current, Lafayette's community-owned nonprofit newsroom. For more great stories and conversation, check out thecurrentla.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. I'll see you again next week for lunch here at the French Press in sunny downtown Lafayette. We'll explore the ins and outs of Acadiana business on Out to Lunch Acadiana. Until then, take care.
Out to Lunch Acadiana is recorded live over lunch at the French Press in downtown Lafayette. Since 2009, the French Press has been serving Cajun brunch and providing custom catering for uniquely personalized events. The French Press is open 7 days a week till 2 p.m. with dishes like Cajun Eggs Benedict and Sweet Baby Breezes. The Out to Lunch Acadiana theme music, Encore Monsieur Nice Guy, is written by Mitchell Foreman and performed by Mitchell Foreman and Andre Michaud. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. Support for Out to Lunch Acadiana comes from the Wyndham Garden Lafayette, located off Pinhook near Khalees Saloon. Wyndham Garden Lafayette is a pet and family-friendly hotel with reception space for large and intimate events, free parking, free Wi-Fi, and a free shuttle within 3 miles that includes the airport and downtown restaurants.